Hello and welcome to anyone and everyone who's decided to watch this video. Today, talking about Blokees again, but we're done with the Galaxy class for now. It's time to go back to the classic class with the with the ninth and 10th figures in the series, and the two figures that when seeing them revealed were actually the ones that got me to finally bite the bullet on Blokees collecting. It is Transformers 2007, Optimus Prime, and Megatron from the first live-action TF movie, and so far, the only Blokees sets based off that movie, but I really, really hope we're going to get some more. And before we talk about the figures, yes, the vastly better display bases from Nemesis Prime have returned. They seem to be the new standard, which, thank goodness. And Megatron has those flame effect pieces, but in purple, and Optimus has the whooshing, whatever these are supposed to be, done in orange for his. And of course, they can connect together in which way you want them to connect. Right now, I just have them in a nice little rectangle. And as for the two figures, well, we will start with Optimus, who is glowing nice and bright. Well, now he's not, because he's about to fade off, but there we go, he's back on, and you can see his eyes lighting up really nice. His LEDs are a little bit weird. They can sometimes go off a lot earlier than they should. And also his spark chamber is very nicely exposed right where the light is. I don't know how intentional that is. I'm pretty sure that's intentional, and it looks really good having it light up like that. And I love, love, love this Prime. It is a really good Optimus, and it looks very much like the movie come to life while still having some form of that cutesy Blokees style. And I just think it's wonderful, and I really hope they go back and do more characters from those first couple of movies. But yeah, he's got all the typical Blokees motion. None of it is impeded in any way. The hips, the knees with the rotation, as well the ankles on a ball joint so they can move any which way. This part of his foot does sometimes collide with this part of his leg. That's what you can, I don't know how well that can be heard, but you can kind of hear the plastic rubbing against each other sometimes, but it's easy to not have them touch. And you can see on his back, he's got the trailer hitch in his spine as his tailbone, like he's supposed to. You can see his cool little backpack wings. I've always liked those. And he's just got all the detailings. He's definitely just the '07 Optimus design, and I love seeing new merch based off this design. That's actually pretty good, because I don't think the Studio Series figure is that good. And I haven't heard the best things about the Masterpiece. Oh, and something I really like about this guy from an articulation standpoint is that how his little shoulder cylinder things move out of the way. I don't know if they move like that in the film. I've never paid attention to that detail of his animation, but I'm glad they fought to do it for the toy so that, his shoulders could work. Also, we can see with his hands, he's got these splayed out hands, but they're kind of webbed for some reason, detail-wise. Like, you can see that extra bit of plastic in between his thumb and his finger, and how his other fingers are kind of like that. So I don't really care for that. I'm not a big fan of his splayed out hands, but he does have these fisted hands, which is generally how I display him, because I definitely think these are the better looking hands for him. And yeah, he does, of course, come with weaponry as well. He's got a blaster, although this tells me that I need to rewatch the movies for like the 50th time, because this blaster makes me think more of his Dark of the Moon gun than his original gun. which I guess is technically his Revenge of the Fallen gun, because I don't remember him ever actually using a gun in the '07 movie. But it is definitely meant to be the gun he used first, because it's got this blue bit to help imply that it's part of his arm, whereas the Dark of the Moon gun was just a handheld gun. But that said, he is still holding it in his hand, like very clearly holding it in his hand. So that's an interesting choice. That is probably the most bizarre thing on this figure to me, that he just holds his gun in his hand when, if this is '07 Prime, his hand should be turning into the gun. But he's got the gun, and he can shoot down Decepticons and go blammy, blammy, blam, blam, blam. So many different Decepticons, except not really, because Megatron's the only Decepticon we have in Classic Class so far for our live-action collection. Get that fist back on there. And he does also come with the iconic Movie Prime swords, and to give him those, it sadly does not work the way it did for Rise of the Beast Prime, where it had like the dumbbells that you put in the hands and you would clip the swords onto that. I liked that system. It was unique, it was fun, it was interesting. But for this, you have to dismantle the arm just a little bit. All you have to do is take off these side panels, and then there's a peg in there, and you take the swords and just slot them in, like, which way you want them displayed in. And yeah, the only thing about this is I am a little bit worried that maybe at some point the swords will break, because clear plastic and they're really thin, and you're pushing down on them to get them into that port. So I fear someday they'll start cracking from having to be taken on and off all the time. But for now, they go in pretty well, and he's got his very iconic swords that have become a very well-known part of the character. I do think my preferred melee weapon for Optimus in the end is the axe, just because swords are so overplayed in culture. In fiction, like, too many fictional heroes have to be the sword guy. But of all the Optimus Prime swords there have been, these movie swords are some of the most unique due to their designs, just with the whole larger blade on one side, shorter blade on the other, and the dual wielding of them. And obviously that fight scene with Bone Crusher is just great. One of the best parts of the movie. So I am, of course, glad to see this recreated for this toy, and that he's not just some weaponless Optimus, or an Optimus that just uses a gun. And you can see what I'm talking about with his light, how quickly it turned off for no reason. And for comparison, we will bring in the Rise of the Beasts version of Optimus, and he's like a little smaller, because that is true to the films. For some reason, Bumblebee and Optimus are like a head shorter in the last 2 live-action movies than they were in the other 5. I don't know why, but for some reason they were like a smidge shorter. And they feel even more shorter than that, because we don't have that insane cinematography that Michael Bay used to do that would make the characters feel like they were 100 feet tall, when really they were only like 20, if even that much. And that's something I actually really like about those first couple of movies. I like a lot about the first couple of movies. I'm a defender of them. Like, the way they just emphasize the massiveness of Transformers in a way I really don't think any form of Transformers fiction has ever done before, or even really since. Like, Earthspark did it a little bit, like that one shot in the season 1 finale with Megatron, and I remember one particular shot with Soundwave that had some really cool scaling. But we normally don't get the size of Transformers emphasized as good as those old live-action movies did it. But yeah, just have this comparison of him with the newest live-action Prime. Now we will put him to the side, and we will look at Megatron. And Megatron, I was so happy to get this Megatron figure. I I don't care what anyone says. I love this Megatron design. I really like how Megatron was depicted in the live action films. Visually, it's honestly hard for me to pick a favorite because he has a different design in every movie. All I know is the best one is not the Bumblebee movie concept design. Ooh, no, no, no. But there's just something so menacing about this one, and the more demonic feel of it, it just works so, so well. I love it. That said, I do think there are some flaws with this Blokees interpretation of it. The biggest one being the hips, that basically they have to go out in this weird direction where they're always splayed crooked and going out from the body because they'll pop off due to the shape of the crotch area. It just pushes them off. Also, I don't get what's going on with the gold. Like, he did not have this much gold in him in the movie. At least I'm pretty sure he didn't. And the promo pictures made his silver almost look black. So that combined with the gold really made me think of the Shadow Emperor Megatron. Is that what it was called? The Revenge of the Fallen repaint of the leader class, where he was black and gold. So it's almost like getting that applied to the 07 design, except he's still silver, not black. But you can definitely get some awesome poses with this guy. His lights are really only visible in his eyes, which is upsetting because he's got so much exposed translucent plastic with his chest. Like, we'll just get this out of the way. Take the torso plate off. Like, look at this. He's got this giant gaping mass of translucent plastic in there, but the light doesn't go through it at all. And it's because, as you probably noticed, he has the Allspark in there. And it's basically completely blocking the light. And now why does he have the Allspark in there? Because he comes with this alternate chest piece to recreate the very last scene of the movie of him dying, which is a very nice touch. It's a interesting display option. I don't know who's going to display him like this, being like, oh. I feel most people are just going to have him being alive and leading the Decepticons if we get more 07 Decepticons. I really hope we do. But it's a fun little Easter egg. It's not really an Easter egg, it's a full-on feature. An Easter egg is what they did with that Ultra Magnus having a Matrix, but, you know, I think it's cool that they added it. It's just not the best thing about the figure, and I do get annoyed that it limits the spread of the light across his torso to basically nothing. Now, his arms are pretty interesting too, because as you can see, his shoulder joint is completely inside his shoulder pad, so they don't move at all. Well, aside for the forward and back rotation, but like the in and out is completely internal, so his arm moves without his shoulder that way, which is interesting. And then for his elbow, you can see, like almost every classic class figure, he's basically got the traditional Transformers Blokees elbow joint, but there's really nothing. If we pull his, that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to pull the arm off the joint. Basically, the only thing locking the arm onto there is that peg, and there's enough open space there that will let you rotate the arm. So this bit does not stay flush to the joint like you'd probably want it to. And sometimes it makes the arm look really weird because it's rotating in ways it shouldn't be. Because you want it to rotate at the top, not at the bottom. So that is annoying. And his hands are pretty good. There's not really anything wrong with them. They're on this free-pronged palm piece that has a port in the middle of it, and he's got his two really long fingers, and then the other fingers are conjoined into this one piece right here, and that's the same on both arms. They're the same thing but mirrored, like most of these Blokees figures are. I think aside from Scourge, they're all like this so far, anyway. So that is, of course, how it works, and you can position them whichever way you want your Megatron hands to be. I believe this way right now is the correct position, technically, but I don't really think it matters which way to do them. And his legs are, like I mentioned, his hips can come off very easy, but there's really nothing else wrong with his legs. His knees work fine. They rotate and stuff, and his joints at the ankles are pretty good. Same ball joints. They got all the movement you need. It's got ports for going into the stand. Of course he does. He's got the big arch there. And if you look at his back, his wings are also hinged, so you can have them going out if you want them to, or just go fully flush with his back. And it's a pretty nice looking Megatron, the first classic class Megatron in Blokees. It took a while because he wasn't in Rise of the Beasts, but that's fine. And I do really like him. I don't inherently think he's better than the Optimus, but I do have to say I like him more than Optimus because we don't get as many Megatron toys in general as we do Optimus toys, and we don't get many Megatrons that are of the 07 Megatron. Like, we got plenty back in the day when the 07 movie was new, because gotta license that movie to heck, and that movie was super successful. But the dominant movie Megatron look has become the Revenge of the Fallen look, with the Dark of the Moon one as a close second. So this one has been somewhat forgotten, and it's gotten its love in Studio Series and Masterpiece, but now it's here in Blokees, and it's really cool to get it in this style of this new line that I am super into and so much of the Transformers community is into. And aside from that alternate chest piece, he does come with one other accessory, being his cannon, which you do just slot into the port in his palm like that. And there's really no instructed way to do the fingers. You basically just wrap them around which way you want, and he can just shoot. Now, this isn't really how you use the cannon in the movie. In the movie, he had to clap his hands together to make the cannon, but I do believe this is how it worked in the video game for the movie, so, that's good enough. And I do like this cannon design. It has a very sniper rifle feel. I think it's a fun inclusion. I would have probably preferred his mace. That's another thing. People are like, these designs don't invoke G1 at all. He had the G1 weapons. He had the cannon and the mace, and he's got the silver. Like, he's definitely been changed a lot, but there's clearly a lot of G1 Megatron in this design. There's more G1 Megatron in this design than people give it credit for. And I liked how the mace worked, too, how it was like his hand. He grabbed the one hand and pulled it out on a chain. That was really cool, so I would have loved to have seen that recreated for this toy. Sadly, no, we only got the cannon, but I'm glad we got the cannon, because if they skipped the mace, maybe they could have skipped this too, but I'm glad they didn't. So we'll light him up again, and we'll light Prime up again, and yeah, both really good figures. I'm not really gonna try ranking every single Blokees ever, but these are definitely two of my favorites. If only because I like seeing new merch for the 07 movie. I like seeing these designs back again. And I really hope that we can get back to this 07 Blokees collection at some point. But yeah, if you're only gonna get one, I say get Megatron, but they are both pretty great. So, I think that's it. I've rambled on enough here. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys around.
Hey y'all, it's your Rad Man Blaster here to let you know that this channel is where you want to go for some cool vids. You dig? And if you do, then you should subscribe so you can know the latest going on. Catch you on the flip side.